Today's episode is brainstorming session on mental health issues. I personally feel that mental health and physical health, which the channel has been covering so far, they're both interdependent. And I would like to include mental health issues and stories related to that on this channel and raise greater awareness on that. And I would like to pose this question to our expert today, Dr. Jayashree Dasgupta, who is a therapist specializing in mental health issues faced by adults. She is an MPhil and PhD in clinical psychology from the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, Bangalore. She is a Global Atlantic Fellow in Brain Health at Trinity College Dublin and the University of California, San Francisco. Welcome, Jayashree.
Thank you.
So my first question to you, Jayashree, you deal with a lot of mental health issues. My first question is, why do you think we should include mental health issues on Health Stories Speak, which really talks about health of our bodies? Why do you think it's so important?
Thank you so much for having me on your channel, Manju, and I think it's a really, really important question that you're asking. Because, way back in 1948, in the Constitution of the World Health Organization, when they brought out the definition of health, they actually defined it as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So, this isn't something very new, but we're still asking this question. And over the years, we've definitely recognized the importance of mental health and the fact that various life events, social circumstances can impact our mental health and our mental well-being at different points in our lives. But we still continue to give greater importance to our physical health. And therefore, I think it's really important to talk about our mental health, even when we're considering our physical health. And the main reason for that is because our mind and our body are interrelated. There's a two-way connection between them both. So the mind influences the body influences the mind, and we can talk more about how that happens as well.
Right. I also wanted to ask you, normally we talk about mental illnesses and we talked about 60 plus age group. They go through Alzheimer's and the other diseases which affect the brain maybe, which are related with mental health. What about the younger generation? We do find a lot of depression in the younger generation. So would you like to elaborate on how prevalent it is in India and whether the younger group is equally affected?
Absolutely. So, when we talk of mental health, the things that come to mind for most people are depression or anxiety. And in fact, there was a study carried out based on the National Mental Health Survey, this was actually prior to the pandemic. And it says that there's about 46 million people who have depression in India and about 45 million people with anxiety. So those are huge numbers. This was prior to the pandemic. Right. There have been studies to say that, with the pandemic, there's been actually a 35% increase. And this is just people in the age brackets of 15 to 60.
Right.
So adults. When we talk of older adults or people above the age of 60 and then, older adults above the age of 80, depression is very common there. Almost 20% of the older adult population has depression. But just from these numbers, you can see it's not just any one particular age that's vulnerable to
right.
Mental health issue like depression, which is what most people think of when we talk about mental health. And in fact, there's data to say that, in India alone, one or more mental health issue is, like every 1 in 20 individuals faces some or the other mental health issue at some point in their lifetime. So it's very under-recognized. It's we don't talk about it enough. And it's something that occurs across the lifespan. Children can also have depression. Teenagers can have mental health issues. Adults can have mental health issues. So mental health is, unlike certain physical health conditions,
Yes.
mental health conditions can actually impact people across the lifespan at various time points in their life. And I think that's also another reason why it's important to talk about mental
Yeah.
health.
The other thing I wanted to talk about is with respect to mental health. You know, uh, children may be suffering in their families, but there's such a lot of stigma attached to people coming out. And how do you really get these stories out? And also, I think the symptoms. I mean, I might be sad today, that might be a different reason. But whether I'm suffering from depression, how do you really distinguish between such symptoms? I'm sure specialists like you can do it, but I'm just wondering how to spread more awareness on the second issue, and what kind of stories do you think we can cover on this channel?
That's a really important thing to highlight, because one of the challenges with mental health, unlike physical health, when our physical health is impacted, you see the signs. You often there are physical aspects that you can see, changes that you experience,
Right.
and often other people in the family notice things. It's not stigmatizing to discuss this with
Right.
people in the family, but we shy away from doing that when we're facing mental health related issues. Even something like feeling sad or low, it's very difficult for someone who's experiencing that to even ask themselves, am I making a big deal out of nothing? Is it time for me to seek professional support? It's very difficult also for families to judge that. I come across a lot of parents who think that, just time will heal.
Right.
Give it some time. Everybody feels sad at some point or the other. And that sometimes really undermines and dismisses what that person is experiencing or wanting to discuss. So I think there's two aspects to highlight. One is in terms of, what do you watch out for?
Right.
And the other is, what can you do for anybody? Is it whether it's a family member, a friend, a colleague? Everybody has a role to play in terms of helping somebody who might be experiencing mental health issues. So in terms of just signs, early signs and symptoms, and just to take depression as an example, um, we talk about pervasive sad or low mood, which basically means that you're feeling so low that it becomes challenging for you to just wake up in the morning and look forward to doing what you're doing. There's a
Right.
loss of pleasure in things that you used to enjoy previously. And that's sometimes actually picked up by family members when they say, oh, this person used to, want to go out before for
Yeah.
a walk, used to want to meet friends, and now they just making excuses about that. I'm too busy, I don't feel like it today, I'll go tomorrow. So these things start off as simple excuses, but not wanting to do things that they used to previously enjoy doing. And another really important thing to keep in mind is that if these symptoms remain persistent across different circumstances, so you feel sad within, say, in your personal life,
Right.
in the family, for example, but even going to work isn't lifting up your mood, or even when you're interacting with friends, your mood isn't changing. So it's pervasive across different situations. That's another red flag.
Because it's so difficult for people to come out, to seek help, even. So, talking about these on a channel like this is equally difficult. I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but any suggestions that we can look at?
I agree with you. It's very difficult for somebody who's experiencing mental health issues to actually become their own advocate. I mean, I think even from the media reports, you'll see that people talk about their challenges once they're in a place where they
A better
feel they've
place.
recovered and they're able to talk about it. But when somebody's going through these
Correct.
challenging times, because it's your mental health, because it's so intertwined with your emotions and the way that you feel, it's very difficult to put yourself on that spot and expect to talk to people, share those experiences, because one of the biggest fears that people have is that they'll be judged
Yeah.
for
Maybe.
expressing themselves openly.
Yeah.
And let's face it, we are a fairly judgmental society. We would like, I think we could do much better.
Yes.
So, we need to create safe spaces where people aren't feeling judged and are able to express themselves, which is difficult for people who are facing mental health issues. Yes, there are some amazing advocates who are very open to talking about the challenges that they experience, but we definitely need more
Right.
advocates who are able to do that. And often when they're not able to advocate for themselves, it's always wonderful if family members can,
Right.
because it's equally stigmatizing for family members. Families also feel judged.
Absolutely.
Unlike, say, when, for example, just to take, cancer as an example, or diabetes, for example,
Right.
these are very common conditions. But if someone in the family develops diabetes, or somebody has cancer, it's shocking, it's surprising. Yes, it's not easy to deal with, but people are still open to talking about it.
That's
It
right.
doesn't face that same stigma.
Right.
So I think one of the things that's really important, even if somebody's even coming on your channel and expressing their stories, I think it's important for people who are listening to that to respect the courage they have in
Yes.
sharing those stories, and really help them carry that message forward by not being judgmental of what
Right.
they're expressing. Everybody's entitled to their own experiences, and that's something which is very different about mental health challenges, unlike physical health issues where it's very clear cut.
Right.
This is a problem and this isn't. A lot of mental health is a spectrum, so there's a lot of gray.
Right. So, a final question. I think it's about the institutions and the people who are practicing, who are giving such help to the people who are suffering in the mental health space. Do you think we have enough? No. I personally worry about people going to somebody and further damaging the child's confidence or person who's suffering. How do we really get to the right person? Are there some documentation of good institutions? I know Samvedna, you are a co-founder of Samvedna, and they're doing great work. I've had, the users' feedback on that, but I'm just wondering how many are there?
Samvedna, of course, works with mental health related issues, and we focus a lot on older adults as well. There are several organizations which work with even younger adults and children. And I think one thing that's important for individuals who are seeking help is, because I have to admit that there aren't enough mental health professionals,
Right.
and the field also remains largely unregulated. So there's a difference between counseling, for example, and when certain things you can get addressed when you meet a counselor. For certain things, you need the help of a clinical psychologist who's trained in different aspects. And then there are various specializations, and we definitely don't have the number of mental health professions across all these super,
It is.
areas of specialization to meet all requirements. So as a result of that, what happens is that people may the specialist may try to do their best, but a person may not feel helped. And again, unlike with a physical illness where, if someone feels they've not been helped by a particular doctor, they don't shy away from going to meet somebody else.
That's right.
You check the credentials of the doctor, you look them up, you find out you talk to other people about the feedback. That's
Right.
not embarrassing or stigmatizing. I've seen over the past few years that I've had people come to me for therapy who through other clients I've had. But that's a change I've seen very recently, even though I've been practicing for a very long time. And I think that's a welcome change, because that means people are saying, hey, I'm facing a mental health issue. Do you know someone I can reach out to? But that's not a living room conversation. Unlike, I've developed my sugar levels are high. Do you know a good diabetologist?
Right.
That's where we need to get to.
Yeah.
So I think as practitioners, it's always important to, we always encourage, and I always tell people, if you're not being helped by someone you've met, go meet somebody else. Don't give up on it,
Right.
because that's exactly what you would do for a physical health condition as well.
Right. Joshi, thank you so much. I think I've learned a lot. I picked up 2, 3 points which I definitely want to follow up on. One is, people who've gone through this but are over the hill, they may be able to talk about it. And that would be a really nice example for some of the others who might be going through this, that it's not something that you can't get over. And the other is I think the question of the caregivers who equally get stigmatized, who equally burn out. So I'm going to move forward on that. And I hope we can get you again to talk on some specific issues. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.